Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy Drew back again with another video for all you American soccer fans out there, and today we're going to talk about the US men's national team roster. Not the European roster we just saw, but the possible potential all MLS national team roster. Yeah, it could happen. So without further ado, let's just get to it. Before you get too excited, at the time of recording this video, there have been no confirmation or announcements on whether or not this international friendly in December is actually confirmed or going to happen. But if you're watching this later in the future, yo, what's up, future people? For right now, there have been no announcements. But this is just my speculation based off everyone getting hype about Greg Berhalter saying there could be another game for the USA this year in December with just an all MLS-based team. And that got a lot of people excited. Some people a little worried, but I think for right now, mostly excited because of the type of players we have available to us in MLS, especially the young players. There have been a lot of young breakout players this season who've had breakout seasons, more or less. And while I made this list on players that I think deserve to be on this roster and players I think Greg Berhalter will probably call up, I had trouble trying to fit them all into a 22-man roster because, first of all, I try to keep it 22 players because that's how the European roster was, and I want to just make it fair. But I found myself, while making this list, a little difficult because there have been a lot of players that I want to see play that they all just can't freaking fit in here in this roster. You know, they won't all get playing time, but there's just an abundance of players I'm excited just from MLS to see play for the national team. That's something I haven't really said in like a really long time. You know, there have been a chunk of players here and there, but for the most part, not the type of players we have right now available. That's going to give a lot of people excited to watch games for USA, whether or not you're playing from MLS or Europe. Doesn't matter. For me, a lot of the players here deserve a spot in this national team, not just for an all MLS player roster, but for a whole total grand scheme of thing roster. Like if we're playing a World Cup tomorrow, some of these players I think I would call up for that game. So let's just get to it. Without further ado, let's get to it again. So starting off in the back, obviously, goalkeepers. Number one pick. Could be a little controversial. I can hear you guys are right, having a freaking titty attack, panicking. Number one, I selected Sean Johnson. I think Sean Johnson deserved to be on the spot. I know he's not a young and up-and-coming player, but he had a good season. He's having a good season so far with New York City FC. I think he faced the most shots out of any goalkeeper in the league, and he's also saved the most shots out of any goalkeeper in the league, even more than Andre Blake. Now, of course, if Andre Blake was an American and was representing the USA, he would be number one for me, and I think he could give Zach Steffen a big run for his money if he was playing for the USA. So, can you imagine how crazy that would be? Number two, Matt Turner. I think he's had a pretty solid season for New England so far this year. I expect him to do well against, for New England in their playing round for the playoffs. I know he's been called up before to the national team, but I really haven't seen much of him at national team level, if anything. But number three, I selected Bill Hamid. Bill Hamid, I just feel like it was a safe pick for me and probably for Greg Berhalter as well. But if I could switch Bill Hamid out, I would switch him out with my honorable mention for goalkeepers, and that is Stephen Fry. Now, I know Stephen Fry is up there in age for a goalkeeper, but for goalkeepers, they can play till like freaking 50 years old. I mean, look at Gigi Buffon. But I think Stephen Fry, since switching over to like represent USA, he's never been called up or even looked at, I feel like. But I think he deserves a look at, like, hey, like, Stephen Fry, you're absolutely killing it this year, again, for Seattle Sounders, being one of their best players on their team. I think he deserves a chance to kind of just be selected, at least called up to the team, to the national team. If he doesn't play, whatever, but at least give him a little nod, like look at, like, yeah, we recognize you're doing good. I think Stephen Fry is the second best goalkeeper in MLS. You guys can quote me. Number one, obviously Andre Blake, but number two, it's definitely Stephen Fry. He's always been solid for Seattle Sounders, and I think he definitely deserves some recognition there. So, fuck Bill Hamid. Bill Hamid could be the honorable mention. I'm going to choose Stephen Fry as my number three for the roster pick. But most likely, it will be Bill Hamid if I'm Greg Berhalter. So let's go over now to defenders. I've got here Walker Zimmerman. I think Walker Zimmerman obviously just recently won Defender of the Year in MLS. So it's a no-brainer there. I think he had a tremendous season for Nashville, a team that was brand new, who was not doing well in the beginning, but he kind of picked them up. He's been the leader there for that team. I think he could be the leader as well for this team, with pretty much a young team in December. And I hope this, I really fucking hope this game happens because I really want to see these guys play. Number 2 defender, I think probably the second best defender in MLS from your boys' team, Mark McKenzie. I think this guy, young, he's another great player who I think is probably maybe next season going to get a move away from MLS. And that's something he really wants to do because his dream is to play in the Champions League. So he's going to keep upping up his game so he can get a big move away from MLS and improve his game probably even more. But I think Mark McKenzie is another easy pick here. And then I have here an Greg Berhalter pick because there's not really much defenders that I wanted to see that have impressed me that much. But you guys might have some, and if you do, let me know down below. Number 3, I picked Aaron Long. I think that's another safe bet there, just because Aaron Long's been pretty solid for New York Red Bulls. I think he's been pretty okay-ish for the national team, and as a player who I think Greg Berhalter is comfortable calling up to his roster. Now it gets to the even more fun part. Okay, we got a lot of the old heads out of the way, a lot of the casuals, but now it's getting fun. Left back. I have 2 left back positions, and that, of course, I picked George Bello and Sam Vines. George Bello from Atlanta United. I think he's having a breakout season. I know Atlanta sucked, but I think he's having a breakout, just personal season. He's a young player. He can play in the left wing, left midfield, left winger, left back, whatever. He's like Alphonso Davis almost. I'm excited for this guy. I really don't see him not being called up. I think if he's healthy, he'll be called up. Sam Vines, another great player. I think he was ranked. Actually, both of these left backs were ranked in the MLS's 22 under 22. That's just a ranking about players who are under 22, the top 22 players. Makes sense. I think Sam Vines and George Bale will definitely be, or should definitely be, the left back options for Greg Berhalter. Now on to the right back. 2 more youngsters. Julian Arau from LA Galaxy and Brian Reynolds from FC Dallas. Now, Reynolds is a player who kind of, took over Reggie Cannon's spot there at right back, and I think he's been doing well. Really good, actually. That, in fact, he actually earned himself a 4-year contract for FC Dallas. So, FC Dallas has got some, some hope for him and some potential heading back their way from Reynolds. And I think Julian Arau is another player, I think, who's been impressing me, impressing a lot of MLS fans out there. So, why the hell not call him up, Now, honorable mentions, I just picked one. I got Miles Robinson from Atlanta United. I know Atlanta sucked. I think Miles Robinson is a good player, but if I got to narrow it down a little bit, I think he was my weak link there. I really don't see him being called up, possibly by Greg Berhalter. He'll probably call up the top 3, like I said, Aaron Long, McKenzie, and Zimmerman. Those are probably the top main 3 who had way better seasons than Miles Robinson. Now let's go over to a midfield here. We've got number 1, Jackson Ewell. I think from San Jose Earthquakes. I think Jackson Ewell is another up-and-coming player. He's been with the national team before. He's been pretty good. He's impressed me in MLS. He's another good player. Like he's pick out a good pass, break up some good plays, make key moments. I think he's good. And second, center defensive midfielder I picked. Obviously, it's just a Greg Berhalter pick, but I picked Christian Roldan. I mean, it's hard not to pick Christian Roldan, considering the good season he's had so far with Seattle Sounders, and he could possibly be an MLS Cup winner at this point, but who knows? And he's young still. He's only 25 years old. I think Christian Roldan is an okay pick. I'll allow this pick from Greg Berhalter. And now it gets more fun again. We got Gianluca Buzio from Sporting Kansas City, 18 years old. Kid's picking up some traction in the league and outside of the league. I think Barcelona was scouting him at one point earlier this year, or maybe like a couple months ago. I think that's like, come on, he's exciting. He's up and coming. Another player who's up and coming is freaking Caden Clark, boy, 17-year-old player in MLS. I mean, how can you not have Caden Clark on your roster? Brendan Aronson as well, and Cole Bassett. Brendan Aronson is a maybe because I think Brendan Aronson, I know he's going to be transferring to Salzburg at the end of the year, so I don't know if he's going to be available to play for Greg Berhalter. I don't know if he's got to go move to Austria with his family, or whoever he's moving with. He's got a lot of stuff to do after the playoffs are done. I think in January he joined Salzburg, so I'm not sure he's going to be able to play, but if he is going to play, if he is available, he's definitely going to play. He's definitely going to start. Cole Bassett, again, from Colorado Rapids, I think he's had a tremendous season. Got a couple goals under his belt, and some assists as well. Also, only just 19 years old. Crazy. And honorable mentions for my midfield section, I just picked one again, and that's James Sands. I know James Sands from New York City FC, tremendous player. A really good player. A very underrated, I'd say, for a lot of USA soccer fans who really talk about Tyler Adams and Weston McKennie. I think James Sands is a player who should be in that conversation. I think eventually he will find a move away from MLS as well. But obviously he's injured right now with a fractured foot, so he's going to miss the playoffs. So I'm not sure if he's going to be back in time to play this international friendly, possibly for Greg Berhalter. So now let's go into everyone's favorite part, my favorite part too. This is the most stacked I've ever seen it, and that's the attackers. So let's start off with some wingers. My number one pick for winger, Jordan Morris, 26 years old, 10 goals, 7 assists in only 22 games in the regular season. He's probably going to have more goals under his belt by the time the playoffs are over, but I think Jordan Morris had another killer season for Seattle Sounders. He deserves to be in this roster. Please, Greg Berhalter, call him up, and there's no reason why he shouldn't. Number two, another winger, right wing, from Orlando City. Can you guess it? Chris Mueller, boy. Come on. This guy had a breakout season. His first season with Orlando was not the best. He did whatever, but this season he's lighting it up, bro. He's actually very good, and I'm excited to see what kind of future he has with the national team. If he continues his progress, I think he could, make a run for other players' money there. I think he really deserves to be in that roster, especially in December. 10 goals, 6 assists in 22 games in the regular season. Awesome. And number three is the Greg Berhalter pick, and that is Yazi Zardes. Yazi Zardes, the 12 goals, 4 assists in 21 games in MLS regular season. 29 years old. He's getting up there. But obviously from Columbus Crew, Berhalter's love and joy that club. I think Zardes Zardes is a good MLS player, but at the national team level, I've never really been impressed with him. And I know I'm not alone on that opinion, but I know he's going to be called up again because he did have a good season for MLS. You guys got to give him credit where credit's due. Yazi Zardes did have a good season in MLS, and that's going to earn him a spot in Greg Berhalter's potential December roster. But then it gets fun again, guys. Don't worry, because that number 4, I selected Daryl DeKay from Orlando City, another player who actually has been called by Greg Berhalter. Greg Berhalter says he's excited to work with Daryl DeKay. He can't wait to work with him. Those are his exact words. Insane. 8 goals, 2 assists in 12 games this regular season so far. I expect more from him in the playoffs. Daryl DeKay, another exciting player. Number 5, Ayo Akinola, a player who really lit up the MLS's back tournament, a player who really impressed me in that tournament, who made me think that Toronto could win the whole tournament because of how good he was. Just 20 years old, 9 goals in 15 games, no assists, but who cares? You're a striker, you're going to finish those freaking passes and crosses off into the back of the net. I think Ayo Akinola, young, maybe not as exciting as Daryl DeKay or Chris Mueller, or maybe he didn't really have a big season like Jordan Morris either, but I still think he's got potential. I still think he's exciting. I still think he deserves to be on this roster, at least in the mix for strikers available from MLS, or just strikers available in general. And the last player selected to round out the 22 players here, that is, of course, Jeremy Ebobisse from Portland Timbers, the MLS back champions. He had a tremendous tournament with them. I thought he was one of the best, probably the best player in that tournament. At just 23 years old, he could play as a striker, but if they need some more width, they could play him on the left hand flank. But I think his killer blow is definitely as a striker. 8 goals, 2 assists in only 18 games for MLS regular season. What more could you want? I think we have a big chunk of players who are up and coming, who are really showing their ability, not just MLS, but it just looks to be that they're ready for this step up level. I think MLS is a little more underrated now. I think the type of players we have growing in MLS and developing is better than it was 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. I think we have a lot of good players at our disposal, homegrown here in MLS. Now, obviously, a lot of these players are not homegrown, but most of them are making the name for themselves here in MLS. And that is what's exciting for all of us. All U.S. soccer fans should be excited about these 2 rosters. We're going to see the European side roster, and we saw the European side roster, and we're going to see the MLS roster. Possible. I really hope it happens, because I would love to see how these players react to, seeing how the European-based American soccer players did against Wales and against Panama, and how that media attention that they got, that hype that they got, that hype train they were on. I want to see it portrayed how I want to see it portrayed the same way for them. I think they deserve it. I think if they really play a good opponent, and I think if they are winning the game and doing well in the game, that's going to turn a lot of heads, because we do have great young players here in our rosters. Like I said, we got Mark McKenzie, Julian Arau, George Bayo, Sam Vines, Jackson Newell, Gianluca Buzio, Caden Clark, Brendan Aronson, Cole Bassett, freaking Chris Mueller, Daryl Decay, Ayo Akinola. Those names should be exciting for you guys. If you're MLS fans, you guys know that those names are definitely something to talk about, and players who definitely deserve to be on the possible Greg Berhalter December camp. So that was my 22-man MLS-based roster for the U.S. men's national team possible December camp. That was a freaking mouthful. But if I miss any players that you guys want to see on this roster, be sure to let me know angrily down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.